Okay, everyone. Well, you always hear a lot about starting businesses and growing businesses, but you don't often hear a lot about exiting the business or selling the business. So that's what we're here to talk about today. I have a phenomenal guest who's highly experienced in this field, and she's going to walk us through the whole backstory of what that looks like and getting ready for exits and that process. She runs a consulting firm, so this is completely on point with this being the Sales Consultant Podcast to have Christine here with us to talk about exit strategies and that sort of thing with entrepreneurs. So, Christine, first of all, thank you for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Of course, Derek. No, appreciate you having me on and excited for this interview.
Great. Well, tell everybody where you are in the world right now. I think that might be pretty interesting.
I decided to live in Dubai for the month of April. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. I live normally in San Diego, but I love traveling the world and yeah, love this city and even more so living here for the month. So yeah, it's good times.
Very good. Never been. Hope to go. Um, Very good. So her firm normally works with founders and entrepreneurs on their exit strategy. But before we get into how you help them, can you talk to us a little bit about your experience with exits? I know you have your own history, if you will. I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile littered with exits. So how many companies have you sold that you've started, and is there any one that really stuck with you?
Yeah, so I've had 19 years of starting, building, buying, acquiring, selling companies. So almost 2 decades already. And 10 startups in there. Another 10 were, other business acquisitions or roll-ups. And yeah, so successfully exited all of them. My software company was the most recent one, and that one was like pennies on the dollar. So that one was still an exit, but it wasn't for how much we put into that. And
Mm,
everybody listening, I know a lot of people are in tech, and I bow down to everybody. I know how hard it is. It was probably the hardest 3 years of my life. But yeah, but I've been successful as far as, all the other exits, bootstrapped. So that was exciting. You start from scratch, you're really scrapping, you're hustling. And I
right.
think the payout is even that much more fulfilling at the end of the road because you know how hard you worked for it. So yeah, I'd say the best exit and the most fun company was Eco Chateau, which is a wellness spa in San Diego. Started from scratch, 2012, 2 locations, 37 women working at both locations, and exited 5 years later, 2017. Great exit, high multiple, great buyers, kept my team, kept everything the same. So that's exactly what
Nice.
you want for an exit. So it's fun now. I get to facilitate other people's exits to kind of get them that sweet deal, not just money, but an incredible buyer.
Yeah, and it's reassuring knowing someone who's been there, done that themselves a ton of times, and now you're taking that and helping folks. So you're applying practical, real life stuff that you've done yourself, and I'm sure you stay on the cutting edge of what's happening out there as well. But I want to understand, like, why do founders normally want to sell? Like, what are the motivators behind it? I would imagine wanting to keep my business forever if it's doing well.
Yeah, we deal with our clientele is actually on the younger side. So our
Hmm.
youngest exit, I think they were about 23, 24 years old.
Wow.
I think the average is mid 30s. This is their first venture. We only deal with tech. So remote based digital businesses. So
Hmm.
digital marketing agency, SaaS, software integrations. So that's the realm we play in. So it's a lot of, early first time founders, younger, and they're just, they're builders, they're creators, they want to move to the next thing.
They
Once
want to
it
move to
gets
the
to a
next one.
certain, yeah, once it gets to a certain size, it's a completely different skill set, and they realize that. And they're like, look, we either need to go raise capital,
Mm.
and get this new skill set, or start something from scratch. And that's the part that excites them the most. So typically they already got that new venture either already started or about to be started when they come to us to exit. And they want to exit immediately. There's no exit planning. And don't, everybody listening, don't feel guilty, because it's very rare somebody's done this massive 2 year exit strategy plan. Like that just isn't as
It almost
common as
never
people
happens where they
think.
did it all right.
Yeah, no, no,
Yeah.
no. They just, when you're ready, you're ready, and you just know it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that's number two. The other ones I've seen is burnout. Okay, people, I
Interesting.
mean, COVID pushed people to the limit, and we saw it. The business owners that still made it through, they still were net positive cash flow. They did well through COVID. Some grew through COVID, depending on the industry, but they were just
Mhm.
tapping out. They're like, look, we can't do this anymore. We made it through COVID. We're ready to exit. So that's the second reason. Biggest reason is
So it's
burnout.
not that they want to go sit on a beach somewhere or something. They're not looking to retire necessarily. They're looking to keep on building.
Exactly. Exactly.
Very good. And what size or what range do you normally work within in terms of size of companies and that sort of thing?
Yeah, we're still lower market right now. We're about 3 to 5 million
Interesting.
purchase. Yeah, three to
Hmm.
five. They're really easy for us. They sell quickly. We can get higher multiples. Again, these are all the businesses we take on are cash flowing, growing companies. So people, even during bad times, people are going to swoop those companies up. So that's like a sweet spot for us.
Very good. And how is the economy right now affecting your space?
I mean, we had one of our largest deals close, and that whole SVB bank implosion that happened last month.
Right?
It literally, this purchase was an SBA loan done through a
Mm.
regional bank in Washington, and that bank implosion happened 2 weeks before our close. And it didn't even ruffle any feathers. Like there's just everything kept on going, and it wasn't a problem at all. Of course, the media loves to scare people, and that's what gets people's attention.
Right. Yeah.
So we just disregard that. I mean, I personally don't watch the news whatsoever, but I mean, again, it still kind of pops in my LinkedIn feed, and I still like hear about things. But I mean, the R word isn't even allowed to be said in my company. You can ask my team. Like, I don't want to hear the word recession. Like, we just need to keep doing what we're doing.
Right.
And yeah, and tuning a lot of that out. And I've kind of always operated that way. Recession doesn't intimidate me at all. Yeah, I don't see we're still selling companies super fast. It hasn't affected us.
Well, there's a
Again,
positive effect to
yeah,
some businesses like yours, right? When the economy has choppy waters.
oh,
Are
for
you not
sure.
seeing some benefits from that?
Oh, for sure. People are pulling their money out of these volatile, stocks and crypto and all this stuff that's very volatile, and then putting it into something more stable, like cash flowing business,
Exactly.
predictable. So yeah, that's what we're seeing. So it's actually good for us, if anything.
Interesting. I mean, I'm going to take a step back because this is going to be somewhat random, but like, how did you get into this? How did you get into building and selling businesses? Is this something that you knew in college and early in life that you were going to do? Did you fall into it? How did this specialty emerge for you?
As a little kid, I was
Oh,
like
wow.
selling
You
candy
saw your
bars on my
lemonade stand,
backpack.
huh?
Snow cone stand though, because I wanted to be different, innovate. So I had a snow
Wow,
cone
that's
stand, and my
brilliant.
poor little sister had to, she had to do the grinding of the ice, and I would get 50 cents for the snow cone. And I think I would upcharge for different flavors, I'm sure. But then I give her a nickel and she did all the work, and I kept 45 cents. So I guess I was born to be an employer. Luckily nowadays I'm more generous with my pay for payroll. But yeah, so
Yeah, good point.
my
Good.
whole life, my whole life. So, and my dad was a business owner too. He
I was
was
going to ask.
self-employed,
Okay.
yeah,
Hmm.
HVAC. So like blue collar, like he went
Yeah.
and did the work, and then I helped him, as a kid, I helped him with his business, and even as a teenager. So I got to see kind of the inner workings of a business. But yeah, I just have always loved building things from scratch. And I think of company ideas. A lot of my businesses I started from scratch are like weren't even really a concept necessarily. They were kind of out there a little bit in a sense, kind of ahead of the trends, especially the wellness spa was, because that was before wellness was super trendy. And so, yeah, I just
Yeah.
want to create stuff that I don't see in the marketplace. Some of it's selfish reasons, like I want something and it's not in the marketplace, so then I create
Building
it.
it for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, building for myself. So yeah, it's a fun ride, that's for sure.
Well, I think that's what we're a lot of times really working towards, right? Is helping fuel that exit. Whether you're in the business or you own the business, it's kind of the marching direction that you're working under. If you're in a startup, particularly, which I normally work with. So, talk to us about the process a little bit, macro steps. Not we don't have to get into the micro, but early days leading up to the exit. If you're talking to a founder over coffee, what are you telling them cliff notes on what to keep in mind, how to position early to late stage in that process?
Yeah, and I know I love what you do, Derek, because like having a super solid like SDR, like sales process within the organization, the owner cannot be doing all the biz dev and sales. I mean, the company's wrapped. That means the company's attached to that owner.
Right.
And that means they're going to have an earnout, which we try really hard not to do. I think I've
An
done one
earnout.
so far.
What's
Yeah,
that?
earnout meaning they've got to stay in the company. So a chunk of that purchase price is not going to be given to that owner, until they earn it out and they hit these sales goals and they stay on board for
So they stay on as a
anywhere.
consultant or advisor or in some specialty role where they're still bringing in new business and being the face of the company for a period of time.
Yeah. Or full-time, or they're like a full-time team member, which is the worst, right? Because now you got a boss again. So, or
In your own
consultant,
company
however.
that you start. Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah, and that's painful. I think I've only had 2 friends out of like 20 that actually stuck out their earn out because it's just so painful to
Otherwise, they leave the
do.
money on the table. Is that what happens?
They
Like, no,
too, yeah,
okay.
a lot of money. But a friend of mine, he had a remaining 5 million on the table, and he earned after 2 years, he made it. I didn't think he was going to make it, but I'll give him all the credit in the world. So yeah, again, if you just want to take yourself out of the role, you want to, in the beginning, of course, you're wearing every single hat as the owner.
Right.
Like I know it myself, right? I've been there. But over time, you want to work your way out of that position completely. And I know marketing and sales is the last hat to give up, like for the owner, like, of course, right? So just kind of get to that point. Again, you can still be high touch with maybe your, top couple customers and clients.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the more you have, the harder it is to hand it off to somebody. I think another thing is contracts. I know it's a barrier to sales, right? To try to lock somebody into a 6-month or 12-month contract for any type of service or software. But that gives higher value too, because the buyer has like that security of knowing like, oh, all your clients are on actual service
So
agreements of these
terms-based
terms.
agreements that are, if you can get multi-term, 2-year, 3-year, the more of the longevity stuff that's built in, the buyer is going to feel more confident that revenue will sustain. So is that kind of what you're?
You nailed it.
Yeah.
You
I'm
nailed
learning
it. Yeah,
along
for
with everybody
sure.
else here, guys. I've never been at the table of an exit. I've been around it, but I'm still learning along with all of you guys. So forgive me for some of the questions.
Yeah. And even if you give a discount, I mean, I would give a discount just to get people under an agreement, right? That's how important it is, because if you
Wow.
do the multiple at the end of the day, you're actually going to make more on your exit if you have people under agreement. So I'm willing to give a discount up front.
Yeah, you had mentioned in our offline discussion that bottom line is so important because that's what the multiplier is based on. What does that mean? Like you're talking about the valuation effectively, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's always a multiple typically of EBITDA or SDE. SDE is seller's discretionary earnings. Usually that's a company under $1 million. So whatever you want to call it, just kind of that profit at the bottom line. At the end of the day, we're putting your ad backs back in your vacations and your whatever meals and entertainment, your personal car down to that number too. So don't worry about that. But in the beginning, you're scaling, okay? Hyper growth, you're going to reinvest all the money into marketing. It's probably going to be zero for the first couple of years. That's normal. Don't be afraid of that, because you definitely want to grow. But then when you're gearing up, if you do want to exit, if you want to exit within the next year or two, then that's when you start trying to really cut the expenses, grow the bottom line. And because that is the foundation of what the multiple is going to be on. It's not the end all be all though, because then you're going to add other value by saying, oh, I don't really work in the business much at all. And we have a perfect reputation. We have a solid, stable team. We have incredible systems in place. All those things kind of stack up and bump the value up.
What are some strategies you see late stage that founders do when they're moving away, when they've been that linchpin to revenue and, they know they need to remove themselves, but they need to keep and fortify the revenue engine? What are some strategies that they've implemented at that stage to keep revenue going? What's something that's working and done well? We want to obviously take some best practices from that.
Yeah, I mean, if they can get like a chief revenue officer in there, right, and then just give them all the responsibility
Right.
in the world to drive that stuff, the CMO, the marketer, like the sales and the marketing is so pivotal. It's like honestly the most important part of a company, which you deal with this every day, right? So having that really dialed, well-oiled machine, super stable growth. People don't want to see on a P&L like these high, unless it's a seasonal business. Otherwise, they don't want to see these ups, downs. They want, and it doesn't need to be hockey stick growth either, right? You're not raising VC capital, but like stable upward trend. You're not breaking the system, because I've grown my own companies too fast and broke things real quickly, right? Because you can't, maybe you're great at sales and marketing, but then the fire hose got turned on, but then the fulfillment isn't there.
Right. Operations just can't keep up.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you mentioned early days that if you're thinking about the exit, it sounds like cutting costs is number one. Is there anything else that comes to mind? I mean, how do you maybe this is what you guys do at Magnolia, but how do you make make it aware, put it on the market? Because I think there's a point of like, you don't want to tell your team you're looking to sell. So how do you market your business? Or what else are you worried about besides cutting expenses early days when you first start positioning for exit?
Yeah. So we talked about, cutting expenses and getting a healthy bottom line. We talked about working yourself out of the job, make sure and again, these are the top objections that we hear day after day after day. When
Objections by
people are looking
buyers, is
at
that what you mean by, is like,
buyers
mhm,
for ours, because we work on the sell side for the
yeah,
companies they're looking at. They're like, how much is the owner work? And everybody listening, 10 hours is totally reasonable. And honestly, if you said you work 0 hours a week, nobody's gonna believe that, right? You
mhm,
still got some people reporting to you, you're still looking at reports, you're still doing some high level management and overseeing some stuff. So if you can get down to 10 hours a week, that's ideal. If you're like, hey, I work 10 hours a week, any buyer is going to be totally cool with that. The profit, getting the profit up, stable team reputation is huge, because that's hard for someone to fix. If you have bad, I just deep dove into a company that wanted to work with us, and they had bad reviews, and I was like, oh, like we just
like on
can't take them
Yelp,
on.
on Glassdoor,
On Trustpilot.
Mm,
So mainly, but Glass, I mean, look at all those, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
try to do that early on too. So try to, I know when I was exiting one of my companies, I actively went and talked to some prior employees and current employees. I'm like, hey, can you just like write us a review on Glassdoor? So try to get those going, because those
right.
look even better. Like, wow, the staff even loves working there.
And since we're
So
talking
yeah,
about reviews, I would be remiss if I didn't ask the audience to please rate and review this podcast on Apple or Spotify. Thank you.
I love
Quick
it.
plug.
Good plug. That's perfect. I second that. Do that for Derek.
There you go. Cool.
So reviews are important. So yeah, I think those are the
Mm,
things you're gearing up. And to your point about, you're not telling the team, do not tell the team, do not tell the team. You're thinking about selling, you are selling, none of that. You're
okay,
going to
so
scare
when do
them.
you? Is it when the deal's done? Like, hey guys, guess what? The is it? I mean, I'd imagine it's a delicate, and it kind of depends on the dynamic with the team and how long you've been together. And if it's two founders, they're probably going to know, obviously, but the
Yeah.
rest of the team doesn't know. And I think as employees, who most of us are probably listening to this, are like, okay, so the writing's on the wall, we're seeing something, it's looming. So how do you control the communication? And when do you release that?
It's so hard. And we're in the month of April. So I'll share this quick story from last year. I think we repost on social media. One of my sales last year in March, they had a team of 6 people. It was a cute plant boutique in San Diego.
Mhm.
And a couple weeks prior to close, it was closing on the 31st and on a Thursday. And so I was like, hey, seller and buyer, do you guys want to talk with the team and announce it to your team in person? Do you want to do it on Thursday? Or do you want to do it Friday morning? And you guys already know what day follows March 31st. We said Friday. They're like, oh, let's just do it Friday morning. And we didn't think that's April Fool's. I was like, oh my God. So week
Oh shoot.
before.
God.
Okay. So it was a couple weeks prior. I was like, okay, we'll do it on Friday morning. Like, didn't
Wow.
put 2 and 2 together. Then a week before, I was like, oh my God, it like clicked. And I called them both and I was like, oh my God, you guys, it's like April Fool's Day. Like, I don't know. What do you think? And they're like, well, let's just do it. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously that is stand in front of them and say, hey, we sold the company and this is not April Fool's joke. So I would say don't do it on that day of the year. But
There you go.
so that was a little boo-boo on all of our parts. You can't tell them so that it's day that's done for a multitude of reasons. And I've even made the mistake of telling like my right hand manager, because I wanted them to buy my company. So I told her, then my competitor stole her from me. Like there's
Oh,
so many horror stories, because they get scared and they don't
right.
know.
And it
And then
jeopardizes
there's
the deal in late stage, right?
yeah. Or if
Mhm.
the deal falls out, then you're really screwed. They're going to be like, oh, well, she was trying to sell the company. She doesn't care about it anymore. There's like a multitude of reasons. And then this is the hack kind of around not, because like integrity and being honest is like a super value, like for
Of
me,
course.
personal value and business. So, and same with what we teach people. And it's like, you could say, hey, because they're going to come in and start talking with team, and you're going to start ask your CFO to pull all sorts of crazy reports that put them on alert. Like, why are they having me do all this weird
Mhm.
stuff, or the due diligence portion? And just say, hey, we're thinking about bringing an investor in, and somebody might invest in the company. Okay. That's kind of pretty much kind of true. Or be a consultant, position them as the consultant coming in, and they might sit and interview some of your key team members. That's the way you're going to probably position it. And it's probably the only way you could do it, to be honest. I mean, if it's I've had some companies, some of our sellers have told they're like key employees, because they're that close to
Right,
them.
right, right.
So
I would imagine at
it's
that state, at that size, and you're mentioning some of the numbers. Yeah, I would imagine there's some intimate, long, and not every, has the perfect 5 year cycle, right? Some of these companies have been around for a while and have had their teams, I would imagine, for more than 5, 10 years where they're exiting. Is that a
and
fair assessment?
exactly. And it is, it's the hardest thing out of selling company. In my personal opinion, is telling my team. It's
Mhm.
super hard, but I will give another hack because again, I learned my lesson with one of my earlier exits. I told the manager my competitor stole her out from, because they knew too. I tried to get my competitor to acquire me. They passed. Try to get my my manager to acquire because she loved the company. She couldn't afford it. And then they stole her. I was like, oh, this was the worst idea in the world. But then my spa, I had a manager that ran it like it was hers. And I would just hate to sell my company and have my manager after the fact say, Christine, why didn't you ask me? I would have bought it.
Right.
Like that would devastate me. So then I got smart and I said, hey, Michelle, I'm thinking about bringing an investor into the spa. Like, would you be interested? That's a great, that opens the conversation up, right? It gives you, see if they're interested, see if they have access to money. I think that's a really slick way to do it, an easy way to do it versus
Yeah.
just outright saying, do they want to buy it? If they're
Right.
interested, then
Well,
the
because
conversation.
investor sounds like you're still going to be around there. But technically, is selling it is bringing an investor in. So you're not. But yeah, it's a good way to dance around that conversation because I can see how it could be delicate and could slip down, be a slippery slope.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so you launched Magnolia Firm, the Magnolia Firm, just under 2 years ago. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah. About a little over a year and a half ago. Yeah.
Very good. Well, congratulations. Talk to us about the launch and what the ride has been like so far. You mentioned offline how you had a sort of a list built up all ready to go at launch. So that worked out well for you. So tell us about what that launch looked like and what the ride has been like.
Yeah, I had been doing I had a broker on my very first deal because I was still in my 20s, didn't know how to sell a company, obviously. And then since then, I was doing all my own because I'm like, look, if I could build a company from scratch, I'm a salesperson, I'm a marketer, why can't I sell it? It's kind of embarrassing if I'm a salesperson, can't sell my own company. So then I just started doing all my own, even the larger ones.
Hmm.
And loved it. And then some of my friends 2 years ago were like, hey, we're exiting. Can you come on as a consultant and help us? We know you've done your own deals. I was like, yeah, sure. And I helped 3 different friends back to back exit really quickly. It was so much fun. And they were all like, you need to do this for real. And, it was just coming out of my software company. It was kind of dovetailed. I hadn't exited all the way out of the software company, but I was almost there. So I was
Right.
like, okay, this is going to be the next, we're jumping into it. And then I launched Magnolia Firm immediately. I had a wait list from like day one. So I was backed up. I can only run 5 deals at a time.
I was going to
My
ask. Yeah.
lawyer friend, she taught me, she goes, she never takes more than 5 cases at a time because she has to count them on one hand. And I had 6 last summer and she just shook her head and she goes, uh-oh.
Yeah, I know what your life looks like right now. You're
I
running
know.
ragged at 6 clients, probably, right?
Yeah, I said,
Yeah.
Kayla, you were exactly, that was last summer. And so I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it. And so, but I was maxed at 5. And then last fall, I brought on a business partner, Khaled, and he's incredible. So what that immediately did overnight was doubled our capacity to 10. We're now quickly bringing in other business intermediaries. We're hiring other team members for support. So
Mhm.
right now, we could probably do like 15 at a time. We're boutique and we like to give extreme attention to our clients. Like they got our cell phone numbers, they can call,
High
text me
touch.
any time of the
Mhm.
day, anywhere in the world and our clients are international.
I was
So
going
I'd
to
say
ask,
there's
yeah, that's one reason, it makes your global presence. Your clients are everywhere as well, right?
yeah, exactly. So now I'm on closer time zone with some of them anyways now. So, and then my business partner stayed behind in San Diego, but yeah, so that was a game changer. And
Wow.
I was going to
Under
stay
two
small
years, you've
boutique.
like tripled capacity, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So it's and moving up market simultaneously. So, but I mean, the market is ripe for disruption. Like the business brokerage industry is so dated. I swear to God, people are still faxing things. I am not. I read it again
Yeah.
today. Brokers are having you fax stuff. I'm like, who what the heck is going on in this world? So we're very, new age digital. Everything's automated. We use amazing CRM automations. I mean, Khaled's like a techie at heart, so he's built so much out in the
Very good.
firm. So we love kind of innovating in this space.
I love hearing those stories as a consulting firm, hearing those success stories. But I also like to learn from what other consultants are doing on the show as the Sales Consultant Podcast. So how do you acquire clients today? I mean, you've the wait list is I'm sure done, and now you're moving up market, as you say. So strategically, what are some tactics that you're deploying today to acquire net new customers, pipeline fill, and so forth?
Yeah, it's kind of been exciting because it was all before, it was obviously word of mouth, and it was some other like platforms that would send us sellers looking to sell and needed
Right.
assistance, or people selling their digital firms that like got they tried to list it themselves, and then they got like bombarded with inquiries of people asking the same question over and over and over, and they're trying to grow their company simultaneously, because you cannot take your foot off the gas. If anything, you got to like floor it, right? Because they want to see the growth, but you get distracted trying to sell your other company. It's like
And
a
that's why it
full-time
was where
job.
that's where your firm comes in that specific area. Keep running your business. Don't take your foot off the pedal. Let us get this due diligence. Let us get this calculations and so forth in a place where you're ready to exit.
100%. That's
Okay.
what they're bringing us on to do. So yeah, we were getting clients that way, and then we just started doing cold outreach. Put a couple people in place for SDR, and like got, and I'm a copywriter, so I've been to this, and I know we talked
Yeah.
before. I'm still like tweaking. We're split testing a couple different cold outreach emails. We're
What kind of
going
reply
through.
rates are you seeing?
Oh, I'll have to ask again. I'm too busy with the tinkering around. I keep making it maybe too fluffy, and then it's going into the, so we can't see the we can't see how many are like landing
Like the
in the
deliverability.
delivery. Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't know. So but the response rate went down. So we're like, is it going into spam? What's going on? So that's like a whole nother, and again, we're doing it internally because Khaled, like he's been in that world before.
Got
And
it.
so, but I'm messing with the emails, and they said, well, hey, your emails are too long, Christine. And we think it's hitting spam. So I said, hey guys, my permission to do the shorter email, even though I didn't like the shorter email. And like me and you talked about, the messaging will attract different people. So
Right.
we had this short kind of scarce, I don't know, it's too salesy in my opinion, of like, if somebody offered you all cash for your business, would you sell it? And then mine was a little softer, like vulnerable, I don't authentic email, right? That
Right.
wasn't so salesy, cheesy. But what's funny is they're 50%, like the inquiries are landing at 50%. And then we landed two amazing clients, and one is from each email. This is type we're split testing. So
So
that's what we're doing
you're
now.
building sequences out, email sequences in a sales engagement platform that you have connected to your CRM. And I think you said you have an SDR or multiple SDRs that are helping kind of steward this while you help with the massaging of copy. Is that accurate?
Exactly. Yeah. One SDR, and then my business partner's man, he's working side
Got
by
it.
side with the
Hmm.
SDR to finesse everything. And I literally, before I got on this podcast, I'm still playing around with the sequence. So we've got, and again, I'd love to hear your opinion on how many is too many, but we're going to have 5 totals that we landed on, 5 follow-up sequences every 2 to 3 days. We're going to hit them again, but we're simultaneously going to also reach out on LinkedIn, because I feel like
Yeah,
LinkedIn gets amazing
absolutely.
response. Yeah. So we're
Absolutely.
doing,
Yeah.
so it's 10 total,
Yeah. Well, 10 sequences or 10 steps?
10 actual touches
Yeah, 10
after they
steps.
respond to the first one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they have benchmarks for enterprise and mid-market. I think the number's 20 plus for enterprise, 14 or so for mid-market in terms of number of touches that you would need to wire your sequence around in order to, fall into the high probability range of making contact, because the first 3, 4, 5 touches we know go unresponded to and so forth. But honestly, the first touch, that first email, a lot of times is a pilot, if you will. It really makes a big difference in whether or not you're going to have reply rates later or at all, if you can do it right in the beginning. So, but yeah, we can talk about that together offline sometime. I'd be happy to. But that's exciting to hear that you are running an outbound motion. You're moving up market. You're using sales development as a strategy. They're booking meetings, I would imagine, for you and for your founder to go in and do that discovery process. What kind of tools are you using to run this? What does your tech stack look like?
The tech stack for what we're doing, they're using, it's called snov.io, snov.io.
Okay.
And those are the Gmail, like burner accounts. And
Mm.
that's the tool they're using.
We'll drop a link in the
Um,
comments. Hmm.
Yeah, drop a link in there. They showed it to me, and again, we're real good about staying in our own lanes, right? So I'm actually the one that handles once we have a sales meeting scheduled, it's done on Zoom, it's done with me. Like that's my wheelhouse. I
Yep.
love like meeting with these potential sellers and getting to know their business better. So I'm in that lane, and I'm like, okay, guys, like you stay in your lane. Other than me writing the emails,
Right, right,
because
right.
they keep changing. Because they're like, guys, we keep changing it, and they go, because we're not getting a response. I'm like, okay, fine, change the verbiage however you want to change it. So we'll tinker with that, but that's kind of and then it goes into CRM. Our SDR puts them immediately in Zoho is the
So,
CRM we
mhm.
use. And we're amazing at putting notes and
Are
tracking
they
and
running like
things.
Sales Navigator too to run lists on
Yep,
entrepreneurs on LinkedIn and stuff and source those in?
exactly.
Very good.
Yep.
Very good. Well, I'm gonna put you on spot just a little bit. We'll see how you take this one. Um, will you ever exit Magnolia Firm?
Oh, that's a good one, Derek. I can't say never. I can't even say the word never ever again. Because in all my colleagues, I have friends that have been entrepreneur business owners alongside of me for, almost like 20 years. And they laugh because I was like, oh, I'm not going to start a big firm, you guys. I'm
Yeah,
not going to bring on,
right.
I know. And they're like, no, you always go big. You're not going to do that. I go, no, I want to be semi-retired. I want to just do, a few deals a day, not grow. And now here
Wow.
we are being international brokerage firm. So yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, at some point I could see us exiting the firm. We're building it in a way that somebody could acquire us. And I think it would be exciting, even if it was, an acquisition of kind of a dated, there's a lot
Mhm.
of really large business brokerages that are franchises that are dated. So yeah, because our demographic is so different. Not only our team is Gen Z and millennials. I'm literally the oldest one in our firm. It's just like I'm not
Well,
that old.
it's a new day out there. Yep, it's a
I
new
know, but
landscape
like one
of
day I
professionals.
realized, I know I'm like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, I'm the oldest one in my firm,
I
but
feel
it's
the same
it's
way.
totally
Trust
fine.
me.
And our clients are young too, so we attract really super rad, cool clients. And yeah, I mean, but I never ever. That's the other question people always ask me is like, when do you decide when to exit? Like, do you plan it? I've never planned it in advance. I've never
So
had
it's
a
always been
date
some
or
sort of trigger for you that's been like, hey, it's time. The time has come. Is it just this serendipitous thing where I think it's time, or has there been life triggers or business triggers that are saying, you know what, I need to get the hell out of here, or it's just time? Like, what triggers you specifically to sell a company?
Yeah, it took a lot of exits to figure it out because I didn't even know the rhyme or reason. It was
Mhm.
always around the 5-year mark. I noticed that much as a trend. It's literally once the chaos is done, the part when you get to the company where everybody wishes, right? Where everything like I
It's
was in
humming.
Europe. Yeah, I was
Hmm.
in Europe for a month with Eco Chateau, and they never called, never bothered me, and they hit their they broke the $100,000 monthly, revenue amount, which is like a big milestone first off, and they did it without me. So I was actually sad because I was like the sales pusher, and I was sad. My friend's like, oh my God, like that's the part that you want. You want your business to be running that well when you're not there. And I said, oh, I'm bored now. And
So there it is. Once you get bored,
like,
I'm
once I get
out.
bored,
Yeah.
I'm out. Yeah, and it's not fair. It's not fair to my team. It's not fair to the clients if I'm over. I'm
Hey,
just bored
that's
and I'm not
we're
challenged. I
wired a
love good
certain way.
wins.
You're wired a
Yeah,
certain way. That's just the way it is. That's
yeah.
well, hopefully, I don't think Magnolia is ever going to get boring to you. Everybody is, we always have businesses and there's always business to exit and that companies need help with. So I do wish you a lot of success with the firm. I know it's still relatively recent. It sounds like you're doing tremendous and you're going to keep on doing great things. But final question for you. So you had breakfast with a person that everybody on this podcast listening should know the name, Richard Branson. You had breakfast with him in Paris some time ago. And I'm curious, this is the question. What is one thing that you learned from him that you've implemented into your life or your business, made an impact in what you do?
I mean, to continue, he has so much fun having, everybody sees that. Like he loves his life, he loves his companies, he thinks so big. So just like reiterated that. I've read all his books and everything, but it just
Right.
reiterated that meeting him in person of like, how excited he was to go to space, and he did it last year.
Like
It
he
was
went to
so
space.
cool.
Hello.
He went
Yeah.
to space. And you know what? I met him. That breakfast was 5 years ago. And he was supposed to go within 6 months of that. And he's like, oh,
Mm,
we're scheduled to go in 6 months. And look, it was like another 4.5 years. And I was like so happy when he made it up there. And just to think like so big, like Elon Musk is the same way.
right.
Something else that I not so much implemented, but I studied a lot more of was Brian Chesky of Airbnb. So I asked
Mm,
Richard, I'm like, okay, Richard's my idol, right? But like, who's your idol?
yeah.
And
Great question.
he said, Brian, he's friends with him. He knows him personally, and
Interesting.
he loves him as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, and he loves Airbnb as a business. So that was super like interesting to me. So it's just fun to just sit and have breakfast and ask him just regular questions that were top of mind, and not the generic, like, what's the secret to your success?
Yeah.
Like he's already written that in all his books.
Right. Right.
So I wasn't asking stuff like that, but it was just like talking to a friend. He's such an incredible human. And yeah, that was definitely a bucket list item checked off there
I'm
for
sure
sure.
everyone here is now wondering how the hell did you get to have breakfast with him? So maybe that will be the last question. How did that come to be?
I share, so everybody can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm great about responding. If you ever have questions, you can hit me up there. But I actually finally posted it recently, like 5 years later. You guys can see that in kind of my post
Yeah.
section of LinkedIn. I share photos and the whole story, and even videos, because I was doing video blogs for years about how much I liked him. So I kind of like clipped them all together. It's kind of fun to see the evolution. But long story short, I had met him in San Diego super quickly because he was speaking. I ran up on stage. I gave him a small check for his charity, Virgin Unite. And then I ran off. And then he was sweet enough to call my cell phone like an hour later to thank me. I thought that was amazing. A
Wow.
couple of years, I told my team I'm going to write this huge check next time. We had a check written and framed in both our locations, in my office and in my home. So it was just like this visualization of like top of mind, right?
Yep.
My
Yep.
subconscious was like, how do I
Manifesting
cut
it.
this
Yep.
check?
Exactly.
Oh
You're
yeah. I was
programming
like,
your
how does,
subconscious. I love
because
it.
it was a big check back then. Like I was like, this is not even possible. And then, but I exited that spa a year and a half later, and then it was possible. So then, yeah, I asked him, I was like, hey, I reached back out to him through email and was like, I got this check, but it's a lot bigger. So can I just hand it to you? And then he's like, that's all I want to do is hand it to him. I didn't expect breakfast at all. So yeah,
So he
that's kind of
invited
the,
you out, and there you one thing led to another. Very good.
yeah, I said I have my passport because he wasn't going to come back to the States until like 6 months out. And I was like, oh, Richard, like, I got to give you this check right now. Like, I don't want to wait 6 months. Right. And so I got my passport. I'll go wherever you're at. And he said, well, I'll be in Paris next week. I'm like, okay, I'm going.
Worst places to meet up.
Breakfast in Paris.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it was fun.
Very good. Well, this has been educational. I've learned a lot. Thank you for being on the show. You mentioned LinkedIn is where people can find you. Anywhere else you want to point folks to look you or Magnolia up?
Yeah, the Magnolia Firm is on Instagram and YouTube. I'm trying to get even more on there in the sense of like educating business owners, not just how to exit or prepare for an exit, or just how to build a strong company. Like I'm going to get on there and do a lot more of that kind of content
Perfect.
across the board of just business success, right? And some tips and tricks to build an amazing company. So definitely check us out on those platforms as far as the firm is concerned. And yeah, LinkedIn, you can connect with me there and message me anytime.